Hey everybody, Jazzy here. Today I was working on my long-delayed guide to Lush season, and I came upon the realization that my strategy for the season relied heavily on growing nettles. Not a problem for most characters, but there's one character for whom the strategy of staving off hay fever will simply not work. And that character is Wigfrid. Wigfrid refuses to eat any non-meat foods, and nettles and nettle rolls are definitely not considered meat. So, unfortunately, she can't use the best item in the game for staving off hay fever. So, I got to thinking, what would Wigfrid do to survive Lush season? Honestly, I don't play as Wigfrid that much because her playstyle lends itself to perpetual fighting, which to me is less interesting than base building and thriving. But if I was going to build a guide for Lush season, it had to accommodate every character. So, as part of my research for this upcoming guide, I decided to do a 39-day run as Wigfrid. The main goal of the run was to survive a Lush season, but I also wanted to see how productive Wigfrid could be during this season if she was running around trying to gather resources while sneezing her face off. What would that survival workflow look like? Sure, I could run around an oscillating fan for 10 days, but considering the season will account for a third of your every in-game year, this doesn't really lend itself to a viable or efficient long-term survival strategy. Now, I anticipated I would rely on two items, the oscillating fan and the gas mask. The fan would be used to keep hay fever at bay while I was storing items, cooking food, or just building stuff around my camp. The mask I would wear out in the world when I was in a situation where I couldn't afford to start sneezing, while fighting, for instance. The rest of the time I would be perpetually sneezing, so sanity management would be a big consideration. Fortunately, Wigfrid has a great mechanism for restoring sanity. Fighting. When Wigfrid kills a mob, she absorbs 25% of that mob's damage back towards her health and sanity, and there are plenty of mobs in Hamlet. But I was also considering options such as wearing a tam o' shanter, picking exotic flowers, prototyping items, etc. I was curious to see how much of an obstacle the sanity thing would actually be, or if I would end up relishing the rare opportunity to actually go insane as Wigfrid and farm nightmare fuel. So for now, I'll do a synopsis of the run, but I will post a link to the full 5-hour run in the description below. If you decide to watch it, remember that you can adjust the playback settings to play up to 2 times faster, so just throw on some good music and bust out the popcorn. Anyways, let's get started. Temperate season progressed as expected. I did most things that I generally try to do during this time. I actually spawned close to the wooden platform, which was nice to get some gears right off the bat. I wanted one gear for an icebox and another one for the oscillating fan. So I'm running around grabbing resources. Didn't find a cave cleft, but I did grab a gold nugget from under a slab, so I was able to prototype a science machine on day 1. So the next day I grabbed my quills and antler and crafted the bird whistle. I also popped a fly trap and hung the stock up to dry. Then, at the top of day 3, I blew the whistle, traveled to Rock Island. Came back with Robin's egg, the scepter, and a couple of blue gems, which I don't really need for this run. The only gem I really need is a red gem for a smelter, because the fan requires alloy. Seems like the game really knows how to screw you with RNG when it wants to. Day 4, I'm back and plucking a peacock for 4 plumes, which I need for my future gas mask. Also, now with my rocks and gold, I'm able to make an alchemy engine. And just in time for my stocking stick to be ready. A single bat from the first wave very conveniently gives me a single pigskin, which I used along with the cloth from my spawn parachute to craft the gas mask. Normally I would wait on using the cloth until I had fog protection, but since Basilisk wings now drop from vampire bats as well as normal bats, which can be made into a cowl, I'm not as worried about crafting the pith hat. If it's for sale in the hat shop, I'll still go for it. Day 5, I farm a little bit of iron ore for shears and ball peen hammers, then go look for the palace ruinous entrance. These ruins were so crummy. There were like 3 rooms with the floor completely covered in spear traps. Sometimes you can kite them to trip them, but other times you just take the damage to make them pop up. Kinda trash if you ask me. Anyways, we get to the palace town on day 7, trade all my relics for oinks, give the queen her scepter and truffle, and grab the city key and hammer. Hat shop had a pith hat, which was good, but no tam o' shanter, which sucked. No gears at oddity store, but we already got a ton of gears, so no worries. Borrowed a halberd from a guard, and made my way back home. Day 9, I killed a few glowflies and prototyped a lantern. Checked the general store for cloth, no luck. Killed more glowflies to spawn Krampus, no sack. But I did make a cowl with a basilisk wing I picked up in the ruins on the way back. Okay, humid season. Made an umbrella and built an oddity store, mostly so I could trade chitin, lotus flowers, and scorpion loot with the collector pig. I also spent a bit of time in the ruins hammering pots in the hopes of finding a red gem. No luck, but I did manage to grab a bit of pigskins. I also found 3 azure feathers which could go towards a Hogus Porcasator. I picked up the final feather by crafting a boomerang and heading back to Swinesbury to pick off a few pigeons. By day 20, I still had no way to smelt iron ore, so I decided to grab the executive hammer and knock down 2 lampposts for the alloy and doodads I needed for the oscillating fan. I figured I'd get a red gem eventually, but probably not in time for Lush season, so I went the cheap route. Okay, Lush season on day 23. Hay fever doesn't start for a couple days, so I took some time to tidy up around my camp a bit, clearing some of the overgrowth and smacking the brambles away. By the way, if you wear 2 pieces of armor when you hit a bramble, you actually take 0 damage. Pretty convenient when you have a lot to clear. I built a weapon shop to start buying coconade because it's definitely more renewable than gunpowder in this DLC. Besides, I don't like wasting too much niter on explosives when I can use it to build my own hedges. Hay fever kicked in right on time at the top of day 25. I was at my camp, so I just popped on the fan. Looks like the fan actually increases the hay fever countdown. In other words, the time until you sneeze. In early access, I seem to remember it just held the countdown in place. But it's nice to get a break from the overlay if I left it running for a while. And it also meant that I didn't need the fan on constantly, and could give it a break for a moment when the overlay faded out. Looks like each sneeze costs 3 sanity, and most of the mobs I killed gave me back around 3 sanity. So actively fighting did help to mitigate the sanity loss. I just had to be careful to not sneeze while fighting, which was why I carried around body armor for this season. If I got into a fight, I threw on the gas mask and a mant suit. That kept me protected and prevented sneezing during a battle. I didn't want to wear the gas mask too much because it drains sanity and doesn't really increase the sneeze countdown in any substantial way. So I figured I might as well be sneezing if I'm not in immediate danger. But yeah, because of my camp location in the wild, I was always surrounded with mobs to kill and restore sanity, so as long as I kept actively killing, I could effectively stave off the insanity. Even chopping rainforest trees generated snakes and scorpions for some easy recovery. I even welcomed bat waves for the 6 sanity per bat kill. The pig guard at the wooden thing set piece gave me a nice 8 sanity back, but he was way too close to my camp and I worried about his torch sending a flaming mob through my camp. So unfortunately I had to take down his watchtower. At this point, I'm not too worried about managing Wigfrid around my camp. But I did want to know what travel during the season felt like. So the first short trip I made was to Swinesbury to trim some hedges. Because you're not generally fighting around town, I did see my sanity start to slide faster. And I would probably not recommend basing in town unless you plan to be insane all the time. Edgy Rick would be so disappointed. But actually, at this point, I wanted to go a little crazy and start to fight shadows for nightmare fuel. So I let the allergens sweep me away to Crazy Town. It's actually a challenge to say crazy this way because Wigfrid, in addition to her kill recovery, also recovers the sanity from killing nightmare creatures. So a crawling horror restores 20 sanity and a terror beak restores 45 sanity. Wigfrid only has 120 max, so her sanity can get quite low before she goes insane. It means that you'll always be sane after killing a single nightmare. This is kind of annoying when you're trying to farm nightmare fuel. Looking forward to finding the ends well. Alright, let's see how far the Sneeze Queen can go. Time to take an extended trip and revisit the Palace Island. I mainly wanted to fight some Elder Mandrakes for living logs, the only thing I now need for a Shadow Manipulator. But I also figured I'd check the shops in town. Grabbed a quick halberd from the cultivated biome and ran back to the forest in time for dusk when the Mandrakes come out. I like fighting them with halberds because you can place 2 hits, kite the bite, then finish them off with another 3. They actually run towards you after the 3rd hit so you can finish them off before they run away. Wigfrid can kill 1 in 4 hits, so smack them once, dodge, then kill. Also, any nearby mobs, including other mandrakes, will fall asleep. Get your 2 on the next one while they wake up, or you could just tank them into the ground. Okay, back to the Palace Town. First stop is the weapon shop. Ooh, a cutlass. Don't mind if I do. Next over to the hat shop, and of course this game would dare to grace me with a Tam O'Shanter only on the last day of Lush season. Just take my money, Princess Leia. Okay, running back home through the ruins. At this point, I'm content to just pick exotic flowers to restore sanity since I know that I'll be finding the Enswell shortly, and will no longer need to force myself into insanity to farm nightmare fuel. And back home in time to craft a Shadow Manipulator right before the end of Sneezy season. Now, hay fever does continue into the first day of Temperate. No problem, we have some preparations to make. Let's visit Swinesbury to trade in some hedges, then return home to make some food, grab our explosives, and go hunting for the Apocalypse calendar. Day 35! The smoke has cleared. Thank God. You know, I have to say, this whole experience of Lush season as Wigfrid was more of an annoyance than a challenge. True, there were some tricky moments during the fighting, a lot of equipment management with the gas mask and armor, but all in all, I'd say Wigfrid is more than sufficiently equipped to deal with the sneezing bouts. Her health and sanity recovery means all you have to do to stay alive is fight. I probably didn't need to cook any food because the recovery perk really takes good care of her, not to mention the damage reduction. That said, would I recommend playing Hamlet as Wigfrid? Definitely not. The fact that you are going to be sneezing and hacking for a third of your in-game year is annoying beyond belief. Compound that with an overlay that dramatically decreases your view and hangs a big green-yellow cloud over your life for 10 days. Not the gameplay experience that I generally look for. If you are really into hacking and killing and don't necessarily need a clear viewport, then go for it. But I will not be playing as her in this DLC anytime soon. I am glad that I ran the gauntlet, though. Hamlet seasons definitely provide for some diverging experiences based on your character selection, and understanding how this character reacts with this season will definitely provide for some very useful information when I finally release my Lush season guide. It's funny, I played over 5 hours with a character that I generally dislike, just to grab information that will probably amount to about 60 seconds of explanation in the final guide. But you know what? You're worth it. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to check out the complete run, the link will be in the description and probably in the card right up there. Like/subscribe so I can keep you posted when I finally finish these Hamlet season guides, and see you next time.